He did say, and he called you a delusional cocky. That was his words. Charlotte Daly with MailSport Boxing. I'm joined by Fabio Wardley. Thank you for inviting us into your gym, letting us see you at work. Boxing wasn't always your first calling, though. You used to be a footballer.
Well, let's use that term very loosely, but yeah.
Yeah, so how did that all happen? Obviously, you were in an academy, so we won't say footballer, we'll say academy football player, and then came into boxing. How did that happen?
Yeah, I played football all my life. Like, as a kid, obviously loved it, played it loads. When I was a bit younger, early teens, I got into the academy at Ipswich Town. I played there for a little while, but I was more interested in just having fun and playing around my mates, really. Whereas the boys, the younger lads there at the academy were taking it seriously and doing all the drills properly and stuff, and I was just off in the corner, just like doing keepy ups on my own or something. Like, I wasn't really too focused on the task at hand. But played for years, rolled both my ankles playing football quite badly, so it means I just couldn't really play anymore without like just making it get worse and worse. But missed that kind of competitive need in me somewhere to push myself, try myself against stuff, and just general competition. And then I just kind of say that I fell into boxing. I just went into the gym one day and just didn't leave, basically. That was it.
You said there about the fact that the kids were taking it seriously and you were over in the corner. So then you decided to pick up a sport that is probably one of the most serious and dedicated in terms of training. That's a bit of a flip.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense much when you say it like that. I think the key for it is that when you find your thing, you find your thing. With boxing, I never needed encouragement to someone go, right, come on, pay attention, do this, do this, do this. I was either wanted to do more, or I was quite happy doing it on my own anyway. It was no problem. I did the training sessions, I did the runs, I did everything that was needed without someone having to poke me or prod me, because I guess it was just, that was my thing. I enjoyed it, I wanted to do it, so I didn't need that extra assistance.
Yeah, and I've heard you speak before about your parents splitting up, getting into some trouble before you joined the Futures programme. Did the gym kind of become a bit of a safe haven for you? Is that something you would describe it as for you?
It was just a good focus for me. It was a positive focus for me. With my parents and stuff splitting, I was a lot younger. And then my stepdad had been around for years for that. It was more so in my kind of teenage years and things like that. I was just a bit of an unruly kid, as it was. Quite happy to get myself in trouble or just do whatever I wanted to do, really. So the Positive Futures thing came around in my kind of later teens, and my coach today, Rob, was a mentor in that program and kind of helping me, guide me and point me in the right direction. And that's kind of what then led me into boxing from there.
And obviously you've carried on and pursued an unbelievable boxing career so far, but it hasn't been the most straightforward or traditional route to where you are now. Obviously the white collar, you were headhunted by Usyk's team to do some sparring.
Yeah.
How did this route happen? How did Usyk see you and decided he wanted to bring you into camp? Because that's just a crazy story.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how he ever came across me. I think by that point I'd had maybe 3 fights or something like that, and I wasn't on any big shows. There were small hall shows, like at York Hall and somewhere like in small halls and like Norwich and things like that. So I wasn't anywhere really in the public eye. I didn't have no major background. There was nothing really to know. But it's a really weird interaction because I didn't actually believe it when it first came around because it was so casual. I literally got a message on Facebook from someone who I don't know, never heard of, with a Ukrainian name, saying, and it was quite broken English as well. It was like, you come spar Ukraine now and like boxing
now.
Like, yeah, like, and I was like, someone's taking the mick here. Someone's trying to have me on. Like, so then I sent it to my management at the time, and I was like, on the 50-50, I was like, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I was like, maybe you just have a look at this. I don't know what's going on. But then turns out it was true. Turns out they did want me to go over there and spar. So I think about a week later, I just hopped on a plane on my own and went, oh, then if this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing. My thing has always been just throw yourself in the deep end. Just throw in, have a look, see how it goes, sink or swim, basically.
Well, I mean, that wasn't the only time it happened to you. Obviously, Dillian Whyte did it as well before. I think it was the Robert Helenius fight in 2017.
Yeah.
What's he like to be with in camp? What's his character like?
Fun.
The laugh says it all.
Yeah, he's an absolute character. Like you've got to have your wits about yourself, because he's up for a joke. He's up for messing around. He's actually a great laugh to be in camp with and have fun around, and like good energy as well, because he trains so hard. He puts so much effort into his training, and he makes sure you will do as well. Like even if like there's been times where he's been in camp, but I haven't been. So I'm like just chilling through camp. I'm helping him, but I'm not doing all the extra sessions and stuff. And he's like, no, grabbing me physically, making sure I'm doing this. I'm like, mate, I haven't even got a fight. Like, can I just chill out for a fight? No, do this. You're doing this. I'm doing it. You're doing it. So he's a great motivator in that sense as well.
Yeah, just pushing you to be better all the time. Well, obviously it's all paid off. It's worked, but you obviously started with the white collar. Did you ever envision in those days that you would then be headlining at the O2?
No, not at all. Nah, not at all. It's funny because when I first started boxing, I thought, you know what? I'll probably have 15, 20, maybe small hall shows. And then maybe right at the peak, right at the end of my career, I'll fight somewhere on the bill, maybe at the O2, but some big venue. Maybe I'll be second or third on, quite early on or whatever. And that'll be my one big one. And I'll be like, yeah, I can look back on my career and go, you know what? I fought at the O2. Like, cool, ticked it off. To then fast forward to today, I think the O2 is the venue I fought at the most. And then come the 31st, I'll be headlining there. So no, I had no clue this is how it's going to go, but I'm enjoying the ride.
In terms of your opponent then, obviously looking at Frazer Clarke, big venues are things people want to tick off, big names and dance partners. Do you think he's the perfect guy for this moment, for the headlining, for the tick box?
Yeah, I think everything falls into place perfectly. That's the thing with me, especially when this fight was announced. I said big fights only. I want to be in those big fights, in those big events. I want to look back on my career and go, oh, remember when I did that? Oh, you remember when I had that fight over there with that person? And I did that, and I went through that war. And I think Frazer's the right matchup for this as well. Obviously, there's the very obvious contrast of our backgrounds, which we played on a lot throughout, which builds a great narrative. It's a great story. And the issue with the purse bids and things before, that's all built into the story as well. So for it to all culminate and come together at us headlining the O2, I think it's all pieced together really well.
Well, you've just picked out two of the biggest points there. Obviously, the backgrounds is something we have to talk about, and you've openly said before you don't think he's ready to face someone like you, and he hasn't fought against the caliber of people that he needed to take you on. Although it's completely different beasts, obviously, the amateur and professional scene. Do you not think his pedigree in amateur sets him up well for this?
It definitely does play a part. I'm not gonna ever take away and say it doesn't. But professional boxing and amateur boxing are two different beasts. The objective of them is two very different objectives. Amateur boxing, you're trying to win points. Heavyweight boxing, I'm trying to render you unconscious by any means necessary. I'm trying to get you out of there. And I've only ever learnt my trade by doing that as well. That's my only objective. That's my only goal. It's the only thing I've ever learned to do within boxing. I did all my teachings, all my learning on the pro stage in front of people. So I've ticked all those boxes. I know I can do them. I don't think it's ideal for someone like Frazer, especially from his caliber, from this come from the ABA, to then have 7, 8, 9 just walkover fights. People who have turned up absolutely disinterested to try and win, and then think you're going to jump in with someone like me who's been in the past 5 or 6 highly competitive fights. Like, mentality towards it, ambition in the fight are two very different places.
Yeah. Well, in terms of that then, talking about his style, do you think this will be the most technical fight you've had so far within your professional career because of the way that he's kind of been, not brought up as such, but the way that he's been coached and the style that he has? Yeah,
definitely. Look, same thing. You can't take away from his technical boxing ability. That is definitely there. So he'll be very smart in other situations where I've maybe been able to get away with other things with other fighters who aren't as intelligent in a ring or don't have as high boxing IQ. He definitely has those attributes. But there's other areas that I definitely excel way more than him.
You said there about kind of getting away with things as such. You're always someone who fights with a lot of like passion and heart, but sometimes people view it as reckless. Is that something you're trying to change and kind of pull back in? Is that something that you have to work on to think, right, okay, I'm not just going to go out there and try and render him unconscious, as you said a minute ago? Is that something you're actively having to think about?
Yes and no. There's a level of consideration behind it. It needs to be done responsibly. It needs to be done in the right places. But that's a key area to me, my game, the way I fight, that I'm not trying to take away from. If anything, I'm trying to double down on it. I'm trying to use it in the right places. It's worked very well for me all the way through my career, so there's no point trying to fix something that's not broken. Don't get me wrong, I know it's not ideal, hence why there's ways to tweak it, there's better places to use it, but as a whole, no, we're not trying to change it at all.
You said there about times to use it and places to use it. One of the things that people have picked up on with Frazer Clarke is kind of gassing out in the latter rounds of a fight. Is that something that you could take into consideration, that potentially, you know, he'll probably be a bit cautious when he comes out first of all, but do you think if he starts to gas out, you can kind of hold and wait and then go for it in the latter rounds?
Yeah, if that is a scenario that plays out, then that's the obvious route to take. I wouldn't necessarily bank on that with him. I think he knows how much is at stake and what's on the line, so he'll probably train harder than ever, a bit more in than ever. And not just that, the night itself, he'll probably have more fight in him to not gas out and push himself further. So it's not nothing I'm banking on at all. But if that does come, don't get me wrong, I haven't gone further than 7 rounds, but I've always proved that all the way through them rounds, I'm constantly in front of you, I'm constantly working. I'm not ever in a boring fight. There's not really a dull particular moment in my fights. I'm going, I'm on. So I'll maintain that pressure throughout the fight.
You've said before about having the ability to kind of dig deep in scenarios. Do you think he has the same ability to dig deep?
I think it's there. He wouldn't have achieved what he's achieved in the amateurs if that wasn't there. Whether the desire is still the same, because I know we talk a lot about his amateur record, but that was quite a while ago now. Whether the desire is still the same in the boxing ring on the night and in a professional ring, is it the same? Against an opponent who has the same amount of desire, who's really actually pushing you and you're a bit tired and you're hurt and you're cut and things, do you just roll over and go, oh, you know what, maybe not tonight? That's a question mark. We'll have to find out on the night.
Well, we'll see. Your last fight, David Daly, there was obviously a great story around that one too, and it ended up being a great fight. Do you think that fight kind of announced you to the world, almost took off those L plates as such, even though you'd achieved so much before and done, you know, great fights before that? Do you think that was the turning point for you?
Yeah, I think obviously the stage that it was on, the card that it was on, the event, the everything that went on beforehand, it all fed into the story of that fight, and made it very widespread, well known, where loads of people tuned in, watched it, and obviously then saw the finish, saw the win, and thought, actually, you know what, it was a different performance from my other ones, where I boxed controlled, I boxed well, I wore him down, I picked my moments, and then we got him out of there when I wanted to. So whereas before people were saying, oh, he just goes in wildly and scraps out, and yeah, so okay, so far he's come out on top, but I think they were picking against David Daly, someone who's a bit more controlled. They think, oh well, when he goes against him, he'll get caught. Well, I showed in that fight completely that I can box a completely different way if I want to. Yeah. It's just I quite enjoy getting stuck in.
Now, I did see Frazer recently, and I asked him to describe you and tell me what he thinks about your style. Before I tell you what he said about you, I want you to tell me what you would describe him as.
Describe him as
a person, a character, and his style, whatever your thoughts are about him.
I think he's a pretty stand-up guy. I think his professional style to date is underwhelming. I don't think he has too much kind of spark or pop around him at all, but I think he's a good, honourable guy and overall sound guy. I don't really have a particular problem with him. I'm just not that enamoured by his boxing at all.
Well, a lot of mutual respect between the two of you, because when I spoke to him, he said that he respected your ability to dig deep. He respected the fights that you've had before, but he did say, and he called you a delusional, cocky prick. That was his words. So what are your thoughts on his words to you?
It's not the first time I've been called that, and it probably won't be the last. But I don't know where delusional comes from, because the only things I ever mention, or the only ways I ever compare the things I talk about, are only ever things I've done. Only things I've ever proven, only things you can see. I said that to him at the press conference as well. I said, look, you can list these things about me, or the things I'm listing, sorry. You can go look at them up. You can go find them. You can go watch them. I've done them. I've ticked them off. So it's not delusion. It's fact-based.
And look, I know that press conference.
I might be a little bit cocky, maybe, somewhere.
You'll take that one. The press conference, obviously, a lot was said back and forth, but one of the major talking points was your T-shirt. I mean, as you said, you're calling that 1-0 already. Yeah. Talk to me about the inspiration behind that.
To be honest, it was so last minute and so random. So the company that makes my clothing, my merchandise anyway, he messaged me literally at like 10 at night saying, I've got an idea, and sent me a picture of it. He went, why don't you do this? And I went, actually, you know what? That's actually class. But I had to leave for like the train the next day at like 9 in the morning, so he had to whip it up at like 7, 8 in the morning. He got in like early, made sure he got it done, and then got it to me. But yeah, look, it's just ultimately it's just a bit of fun. It's just me. It's just my character. It's just the way I am. I'm just pissing around a bit. Like I've done it before with other press conferences and made little jokes and stuff. I wore like a fake mustache at one before. It's just a little poke and a prod and a laugh. Like I don't really care too much. It's just I'm just there to have a laugh with it.
You can't help yourself. Sparring, obviously, that was one of the things that came up in the press conference, that you guys have sparred together.
In this very ring, actually.
Oh, here we go. This is where it happened. You guys really played it down, though. Both said that there was nothing to take from it. But if I was in that situation and I'd sparred someone and I was about to fight them, any little thing, I was a little bit fitter, or I was a little bit sharper, or I was a little bit stronger, I would be sitting here going, oh yeah, I was better on that day. Is there not any part of you that thinks if you got the upper hand in it, does that not give you an extra motivation?
I think it's a false sense of security when people try and rely on sparring stories too much. And Frazer's been around the block, so I guess he is of the same thought. I never really respect people too much when they go, oh, well, I was in sparring and I did this and I did that. And like, sparring is not the same thing, not slightly. He's working on something, I'm working on something, I'm trial and error, different plans, different styles, different moves, seeing if it works. And it might not work for the whole spar, so I get battered the whole spar. Does that mean you're better than me? Does that mean you won? Not really, no, because on the night, I've now figured out 6, 7 things that don't work. So I know what to use and what not to use. But there wasn't a lot to take from it either, really. It was 6 rounds. And it was just the one time as well, so there wasn't loads to take from it. I think that's why, because we're both just like, look, it just was what it was. We had a little mix around, both hit each other a few times and cracked on. Yeah,
well, it's all different under the lights on fight night, isn't it? Talking of fight night itself, what are your predictions for the fight? Now, I know you're not going to go into great detail of it, but how do you see that playing out?
One way or the other, it's going to be a firefight. I'm going to drag him into that kind of fight. I think that's where you get the best from me. And we haven't seen him there, so we don't know what he's like in them situations. So I'm gonna make it ugly. I'm going to make it rough. I'm going to keep the pressure on him. And the thing is with me always, my fights are entertaining, so I've got to maintain that as well.